Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating piece of science, one that kind of flips our whole idea of performance right on its head. It reveals a bizarre situation where being stronger, faster, and tougher might actually be a fatal disadvantage. So let's get right into it. It's a question that sounds completely backward, doesn't it? I mean, we train to get stronger, to push our limits. But what if pushing those limits, going further than anyone else, actually hides a hidden, deadly cost? Well, that's the big mystery at the heart of what we're talking about today.
So, our story starts with a really serious medical condition called exertional heat stroke, or EHS for short. And this isn't just about feeling a little bit of overheating. Nope, this is a life-threatening illness that can affect anyone who's doing intense physical activity in the heat. We're talking everyone from elite athletes to soldiers out in the field.
Now, scientists studying EHS in mice noticed something weird. They saw that female mice could consistently run longer than male mice in the heat. About 40% longer, actually. But here's the catch. Their results were all over the map. Some days they were absolute endurance superstars, and other days they were just okay. This wild inconsistency was a huge clue that something else was going on under the surface. That up and down performance pointed researchers toward a really compelling idea. Maybe it had something to do with the natural cycle of female hormones. They started to think, what if a mouse's specific place in its hormonal cycle could dramatically change how well it handles heat stroke?
So to test this, they looked at what's called the estrus cycle. The easiest way to think about it is that it's the rodent version of the human menstrual cycle. It's this recurring pattern of hormonal shifts that gets the body ready for reproduction.
The scientists decided to focus on two very different phases. First up, you've got the estrus phase. This is a lot like the follicular phase in humans, and the key thing to know is that it has a high ratio of estradiol to progesterone. And then you have the Diestrus phase, which is more like the luteal phase and has a lower ratio. So the big question became, does this hormonal difference actually matter when things get really tough? And what's super cool is how they could tell these phases apart. It's not just guesswork, it's incredibly visual. They could take a sample, look under a microscope, and literally see completely different types of cells. On the left, for estrus, you see all those cornified epithelial cells, and on the right, for Diestrus, it's just packed with leukocytes. This is how they could be sure they had two distinct groups of mice before the test even started.
All right, so with the mice all sorted into their hormonal groups, it was time for the main event. And let me tell you, this was no ordinary gym session. The researchers set up an experiment designed to push these mice to their absolute physical breaking point.
Let's just walk through how intense this was. First, they put the mice in a chamber heated to a sweltering 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, they put them on a running wheel that just keeps getting faster and faster, and the test only stops when a mouse physically can't go on, it loses consciousness. It sounds extreme, I know, but it was designed to find the absolute ceiling of their endurance.
So, the big moment. Which group came out on top? Well, the data was immediate and it was crystal clear. One group didn't just win, they absolutely dominated.
Get this, the mice in the estrus phase, that's the group with the higher estradiol ratio, lasted a staggering 18% longer on average before they collapsed. In a grueling test like this, an 18% advantage is just massive.
And this chart just makes it so obvious. Take a look at the total distance they covered. That blue bar on the left for the estrus group is just towering over the red one for the Diestrus group. They ran so much farther, you can literally see the performance gap.
And it wasn't just about endurance either. The estrus mice were also faster, hitting a higher top speed on that wheel. So by every single metric you could measure, time, distance, speed, the estrus group were the undisputed champs. Case closed, right?
Not even close. Because what happened after the experiment is where this whole story takes a shocking, tragic turn. It's where we find the paradox that this whole study is about.
It turns out their incredible ability to push harder, to ignore all the warning signs from their bodies, well, it came with a devastating consequence.
In the hours right after the test, 5 of the mice died. A terrible outcome, but maybe not a total shock, given how severe the heat stroke was. But the real stunner was which mice died.
100%. Let that sink in. Every single mouse that died came from the so-called winning estrus group. And how many from the lower performing Diestrus group? 0. Not a single one. The supposed losers all survived, while the champions paid the ultimate price.
And the study's own conclusion really nails it. They discovered a fundamental trade-off.
The same hormonal state that let the mice perform better during the heat stress seemed to strip away the protections against the organ damage that came later.
This discovery really forces us to ask a huge question, you know? What is the real relationship between hitting our peak performance and, well, long-term survival?
So what's actually going on here? Why would the superior performers be the ones to die? The answer, it seems, is in what happened right after they collapsed.
Okay, so how do we explain this? Well, the biggest clue is right here on this slide, which tracks their core body temperature during recovery. The blue line shows the estrus mice that survived, but look at that gray line. Those are the ones that didn't. You can see their bodies stayed significantly hotter for way longer. By pushing themselves that extra 18%, they built up so much heat and damage that their systems just couldn't cool down and recover. Their strength literally became their downfall.
And yeah, I know this is a mouse study, but the implications for us humans are pretty profound. Just think about female athletes, soldiers, firefighters, anyone in a high-stakes job where you're praised for pushing through the pain. This research suggests that hormonal cycles could affect not just performance, but also the hidden risk of going just a little too far.
And that really leaves us with a challenging final thought, doesn't it? We celebrate people who can push past the pain, who can achieve these incredible things. But this study forces us to ask, what's the hidden biological cost of that victory? And is it always a price that's worth paying?